It's a privilege and honor to come and speak to you with the esteemed panel that we have here today. One of the things that most people do not know about me is that, about 32 years ago, I started my career at the Weather Office. Two of my predecessors, the first governor, Mr. Siwitimba, also started his career at the Weather Office, as well as the second governor, Mr. Kumambola. Talking about weather, I thought to just share this joke because Nazia told me, make sure that the audience today is awake. Because normally lawyers go to sleep after morning tea, not after lunch. So the joke is about this young American, radiant American that was installed as the new chief for the tribe. So it was getting close to winter, and one of his tribesmen asked him, Chief, will it be a bad winter this year? So the chief pretended that he's smart. So he looked up to the skies, scratched his chin and said, yes, it will be a bad winter. But he was worried about his reputation. The next day when everybody was sleeping, he walked a few miles to the nearest phone booth, public phone booth, and called the Met Office and asked them if the winter will be bad. And the reply from the Met Office was, yes, it will be a bad winter. Came back the next couple of days, somebody else asked him, Chief, will we have a bad winter? He again said, yes, it will be a bad winter. When everybody was asleep, he again went and called from the public phone to confirm if it was a bad weather. And the Met Office said, yes, it will be bad. Winter had approached, and it wasn't really a bad. It wasn't really a bad winter to start off. Then one of the other tribesmen came to the chief and said, Chief, do you really think that it will be a bad winter? And the chief said, yes, it will be a bad winter. The next morning, he walked up to the phone booth, called the Met Office, and asked them, will it be a bad weather? And they said, yes, it will be a bad weather. So he asked the Met Office, could you please tell us or explain why it will be a bad weather? The reply from the Met Office was, it's simple. The Red Indians are running and collecting firewood like shit. Coming back to the presentation today, as Nazia said, I wear two hats, the head of governor as the regulator for insurance companies, and as well as the head of the chairman of ACCF. So my presentation today, I'll discuss briefly on the initial discussion and the case or whether there's a case for ACCF. I'll then share some key statistics on the compulsory third party, then talk about the legislative framework, the role of Reserve Bank as we move forward, some of the achievements and some of the things that we need to do, and then to close. But to start off, it's, economists don't have this opportunity to speak to lawyers often. So I thought to share this slide with you. The slide on the extreme right shows the share or the contribution of GDP by the various economic sectors. As you all know, the tourism sector is the largest sector, but it's made up of wholesale and retail, the accommodation sector, and the transport sector. Where do the lawyers come? The lawyers are part of that red bar that you see, the piece of cake that you see there, under professional and technical services. Their contribution to GDP, professional services, account for about 2.2% of GDP. The slide on your left is the contribution of the lawyers. The lawyers contribute 0.3% to GDP. In today's dollars, it's about 25 million. But there's a silver lining, or at least there's two silver linings. One is that there's no category for economists, so you can feel good because there's no category for economists. The second silver lining is based on the previous GDP weight, because these weights get revised every few years. The weight for the legal profession, legal services, increased by 50%. And that's quite a big increase because it moved from 0.2 to 0.3%. Just some initial background. So the discussion on CTP has been ongoing. The legislation is much, much older than myself and a lot of you here. It was enacted in 1948. So there's been a lot of discussions on things. But I'd like to share what Honorable Pramod Chand said in Parliament. And You can get this if you go look at the Hansard report. I'm sure you can read that. And let me just very quickly read what he said. He said the insurance cover is not adequate. It's very archaic laws that were designed well before 1950s, and when we had only 10 to 12-seater buses. The maximum claim is of 40,000 in totality per person, or per person is 4,000. It's not sufficient because today we have buses that go up to 72 seats. He then on to say that we have raised this issue many times to do something overall with this archaic act so that the people of Fiji are not just left high and dry. And the underlying words I thought is very important for you as legal practitioners. The cases go on, and the legal practitioners will always try to delay the cases so that the witnesses die out, people die out, and everyone just forgets about it. So is there really a case for ACCF? I think to start off, I think what I would need to share is that there's no member of parliament, when this bill was presented to parliament, nobody objected to it. Everybody supported this bill. Just as a matter of background, there's about close to 130,000 vehicles on our roads. And given that third-party insurance is a compulsory thing, everybody who owns a car has to pay a premium, and therefore the pool of premium continues to grow. But I'm sure my fellow panelist, CEO from Consumer Council, will talk about the consumer protection issues that has been continuously highlighted. Again, just like to mention that the legislation is archaic. There's been significant delays in settling claims due to long court processes, and I'll share some data on that. There's interpretation of exclusions not in favor of policyholders' interest. It's a limited fault basis scheme, and the maximum passenger liability for public transport is 40,000. And there's been numerous complaints to the Consumer Council. So let me quickly share some data on CTP. First of all, the blue bars there show the total premium pool that the insurance company receive. The red bars are the underwriting surplus, or in simple terms, the profit. So you can see that this is a very viable and profitable class of insurance that the insurance companies write. Over the last 5 years, the loss ratio for CTP, or compulsory, on average is about 17.45%. The average loss ratio for the last 10 years is 25%. So again, what this implies is that it's a viable or very profitable class of business. But as the supervisor of, and regulator of insurance, I must also add is that this class also subsidizes the other classes of insurance, particularly when we have cyclones and floods. This is a slide that shows the outstanding claims by numbers and age. The blue bars show the total outstanding claims. On average, that has declined from 333 in 2012 to about 242. The number of claims that are made each year to the insurance companies average about 150. So the fact that the outstanding claims are 350, the claims made in any 1 year is around 150, it means that there are a lot of claims that are delayed. The yellow bar shows that in 2012, 138 of the claims that were paid out in 2012 were more than 2 years old. So that what it shows is that there were significant delays in the payment. The other important thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the CTP is a class that is called long tail. Long tail class of insurance means that you may have an accident today. After 2 years, you realize that you are unable to go to work, or you suffer more pain. Then you go to the doctor, and the doctor will say that, oh, this was because of an accident that happened 2 years ago. So it's a long tail class, means that claims can be made not only immediately, but it could take 3 to 5 years, and sometimes up to 6 years for claims to be made. So that's why it's a long tail class. This is the same slide presented in a slightly different way. The previous slide was on numbers. This is on amounts. So you can see in 2016, $1.4 million was paid for claims that were made prior to 2014 or 2013. So you can see that in 2012, only $0.1 million of claims were made for those that were claims that for the year. Majority of the claims were made for 2 or 3 years prior to when it happened. Let me now go on to the Accident Compensation Commission of Fiji. As you all know, the legislative framework is the Accident Compensation Act that comes into effect on 1st of January 2017. As I mentioned earlier, this is the act that Parliament approved, and all members of Parliament supported this bill. There will be 4 regulations that will come out. These are the Accident Compensation Regulations, the Accident Compensation Levies Regulation, the Accident Compensation Medical Assessment, and the Accident Compensation Transitional Regulation 2017. The last one has already been gazetted. The institutional framework, there's a board. The board is made up of 5 members. So far, we have 2 meetings already. We are in the process of recruiting a CEO and staff. The key stakeholders are, of course, the vehicle owners, government, LTA, the insurance companies, the reinsurers, and of course, general public, because all of you can be affected. The implementation of the Accident Compensation Act, all accidents after the 1st of January will be covered under this act. The act provides for a no-fault compensation scheme through which victims of accidents will be compensated without having to prove fault or negligence. The coverage extends beyond third parties, that is, any personal injury or death suffered by any person as a result of an accident in Fiji is eligible for compensation under the Act. And the motor vehicle levies will be paid to the LTA. So very quickly, comparing the two legislation, the payment of service, currently you pay your CTP premium to your general insurer. From 1st of January, you pay your levy to LTA. The cover period, the policy exclusions-based system, unfair for victims. Under the ACCF Act, it's a no-fault scheme based for victims with minimal exclusions. Claim for injury and injury suffered or death. Currently, you can make your claims to the insurance companies, and some of it may end up in court. Under the ACCF legislation, claims will be made to the ACCF, paid based on a predetermined amounts, but of course you have the option to take legal action. The compensation, under the CTP Act, you pay only to third parties. Under the ACCF, it's paid to any person who suffer injury or death. And finally, on passengers of PSV vehicles, the limit of 40,000 or 4,000 per person has been removed, and compensation will be paid as per the prescribed limits. The role of Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is the regulator and supervisor of all financial institutions in Fiji, including insurance companies. So our role is to ensure the safety and soundness of our insurance companies, making sure that the policy holders are always protected, and the stability in the insurance industry. Under the Accident Compensation Act means that the ACCF will not be reporting to the Reserve Bank. However, we feel that we have a role to play in. So the role that we will assist the accident compensation is, one, try to assist them with reinsurance. It's important that the pool of funds that is received is invested properly, and making sure that some of the risk is offloaded to reinsurance. The other important thing that we feel is important is looking beyond. This legislation is a much broader in terms of economic development. So it helps those people, previously who could not get compensation under the fault scheme. The key achievements to date and next steps, especially on the board. Our board has been established. There's 5 members, and we have had 2 meetings so far. In terms of appointment of CEO, this is in process, and this should be concluded shortly. There's been extensive consultation with the Insurance Council, and this is ongoing. One of the key achievements that we feel that we have come is that a lot of insurance companies, because of the changes from a fault scheme to a no-fault scheme, some insurance companies felt that they would not like to take this additional risk. They've already gone on and made arrangements with reinsurance based on the current no-fault scheme. So what we have done with these insurance companies is, if they are not happy to take this additional risk, come 1st January 2017, 18, they will transfer the whole portfolio of the CTP to the accident compensation on a pro-rated basis, and together with that, they will give the ACCF a big check on the premium. So things have been quite encouraging from the insurance companies on this front. With respect to feedback from the bus companies are all very happy. The fact that we have removed that $40,000 limit, so they are all very happy. It simply means they do not have to take very large amounts of personal liability or comprehensive insurance. The motor vehicle levy, this has already been approved by the board and will be soon gazetting this and creating awareness. But for the members, I can tell you that there's something good. The levies will be lower than what you currently pay to the insurance. LTA, as highlighted earlier, LTA will be receiving these levies. Discussions are ongoing, and they are ready to start come 1st January 2018. In fact, it's most likely they will start a week or two before January by collecting these levies. In terms of regulation, the transition regulations is in place, and we are currently working on the other 3 regulations, and this should be finalized in the next week or two. In funding, the government had announced $1 million in the 2017-2018 budget, and this will be used for the initial cost. And awareness will start this commencing next week. So in summary, insurance is a great invention. One of those inventions that touches everyone's life. The concept of pooling funds to assist the unfortunate in those faced with adverse situations is a very noble idea. For ACCF, I think the key is the transition from moving from a fault to a no-fault scheme. As I mentioned earlier, some insurance companies thrive, or this is something that the CTP forms a large part of their business. So some of them will be affected, but as a regulator, I can give the assurance that all of them will remain solvent. All stakeholders agree that certain provisions in the CTP legislation is outdated, and of course, this legislation impacts the legal profession. I know based on my on-site report previously, there are a number of lawyers in Fiji, they specialize in CTP legislation. Whenever there's an accident, they're there to make a claim with the insurance company. So some of the legal profession will be affected, or some lawyers may be affected because this will be taken away from them. The legislation affects everyone. As the Prime Minister highlighted, we have had some very good learning from the New Zealand ACC, and there's potential to include workmen's compensation. So one of the things we're looking at in future is to extend it from motor vehicles to accident compensation. That is my short presentation.